All right, guys, welcome. Let me just get a couple of things sorted here. Let's show that. Let's get that in the mix. Let's get this in the mix. Reboot. Rumours. The veil of was. Let's see how that looks. All right, so that looks nice. All right, guys, Merc here, broadcasting from two locations. Okay, no, broadcasting two locations. We're going to be talking about some heat today, okay? It's been a while since this news actually broke, and I've tried to keep out of this. You know, I don't actually talk about Star Wars anymore. That's the bottom line. I don't. But there are certain things that brings a guy out of the crevices, out of the caves, out of the caverns, and it's news like this. Because I have a lot of thoughts. Okay, I have a lot of thoughts as to what this means, as to where it's taking us as Star Wars guys, and what it means for the future of this entire situation going on here. Now, as you know, like just as a preface to this video, like I'm obviously operating off a different platform these days. You know, Curator, it's a new application for movie fans. So if you don't have it, there's a link of the, website and stuff, or the name or whatever. You can get it from the App Store or the Android store. It's an application where for movie fans, where you play fun trivia in order to get qualified to rate and review movies. I could talk more about that, but that's not what this video is specifically about. So if you want to get some information about that, you can go to the website www.curatormovieapp.com. So, before we get into this, there's been a lot of things going on with the great Star Wars. A lot of things going on. And I haven't really thought about this thing since Rise of Skywalker came out, because I was finished. I was like, you know what, look, I don't really have much else to say. I haven't got much else to think about this. I didn't even go to the cinema to watch that movie. I was sort of dragged to that place to see it by Phantom of Hope and Have Hope. Those guys actually forced me to go and watch that picture. I was out actually before Last Jedi. No, what am I saying? Sorry, rewind that. It's Last Jedi that Phantom of Hope and have forced me to go to. I didn't even go to the cinema to watch Rise of Skywalker. The last time I went to the cinema was actually to watch Last Jedi, and that's ended the game for me. Prior to that, I did, of my own volition, go to watch Force Awakens, and that was the reason why I said I wasn't going back to watch any more Star Wars movies. It's because of that movie. Okay. So obviously, listen, we all know what happened with Rise of Skywalker. We know the situation. And, I mean, to all intents and purposes, and as far as I felt, Star Wars was finished at that point. I was like, look, there's no point. Like, what are you really going to watch? Like, everyone's dead. You've killed everybody of the original cast that actually we were all fans of, the people that made me give a damn about this thing. You mishandled Luke to such a degree that the guy might as well not have even been in the movie. Yeah, whatever. That being said, there's now these new rumors. And listen, let me preface this by saying that this actually doesn't really matter to me. It's like, it's not an issue. And it's not an issue to me because I'm out of the game. It doesn't matter. So I'm like, look, whatever happens now or whatever, like you can't even get things to be the way that they should have been, because Carrie Fisher isn't alive anymore. I highly doubt that Harrison Ford will agree to come back to do anything. You know, I seriously doubt that. So at the end of the day, you know, who do you have? You have Mark Hamill. What do they call it? David Prowse is dead, right? The guy who did the Chewbacca's gone. Like, you basically, there's so few people left, and all of these people, this was so painful about how all of these people were actually alive when Force Awakens came out. So you could have had literally everybody, but we don't have them now. Okay. So from my point of view, it doesn't really matter. But let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. So for anybody who's here, I don't know who's in the room. I see a couple of people coming in here now. We're basically, you know, getting into the Star Wars rumors about the reboots that's supposed to be happening. So let's get into this. So what is being mooted, you know, what I'm hearing through the grapevines, and, you know, obviously you guys have probably seen videos of people putting this all up all over the place, is that there's hints and whispers of Star Wars being rebooted. And when I say rebooted, I'm talking about really the sequel trilogy, the points in the timeline from the sequels, and essentially wiping away everything that happened in the sequel trilogy, the main trilogy, not the spin-offs, but the main trilogy. When I first heard it, I was like, what? Like, how is that even? Are they just going to just say that, pretend like the movies didn't exist? Or, but then obviously looking into it and getting some more information, they're talking about this thing called the Veil of the Force that was in Star Wars Rebels or one of the cartoon animated series, of this realm where all time and space converge. And it's been likened to, I mean, look, I guess it's just the same thing as like a multiverse, you know, where there's like different iterations of the same, of our world, for example. Like, there's infinite possibilities of the ways in which things could branch off and so forth and so on. And you can actually access all these different variations of options and possibilities. And they are saying that they're going to utilize this thing in order to wipe away the timeline that we've watched, well, not fully, but, you know, of the sequels, and recalibrate everything. So it's as if none of that actually happened, and basically give an entirely new trilogy of movies or whatever, series of movies, starting from where the sequels began. So there wouldn't be any Rey, no Finn, no Poe, no First Order, and all of that sort of stuff. None of that would have happened in the version that they would want to do, based on the idea of resetting everything through the Veil of the Force. And then, you know, Palpatine would have actually really died. He wouldn't be coming back. Yeah. Now, how I feel about this is interesting, because while I said I really don't care anymore, I actually feel like this is the only way to fix this. It's the only way. I don't feel like there is any way that you can do this without going into things and wiping the slate clean. I don't believe it's possible, because the current sequel trilogy is so damaging to the timeline, the original timeline, that there is nothing you're going to be able to do to correct that, because of the way that story has gone and the kinds of characters that we've been given and the threads that exist. So what this means is that there is a possibility that we're going to get the Luke, well, no, I'm not even going to say it because I'm out. That Luke, the Luke that is deserved, is going to actually exist in this reality of Star Wars. Now, guys, you know, I'm not going to dwell on this too much. Like, this is not going to be a super long video, but if I want to be objective, It's the only way. There's no other way. Like you have to do something this radical to fix things. It's the only way. You're not going to be able to fix what you have. Like, they literally will have to reboot the whole thing. However, I'm very, very interested to figure out who's going to be leading the ship on this. Is it Kathleen Kennedy? Because it can't be Kathleen Kennedy. I think that we all know that's not going to happen. But what are we looking at? Is it Dave Filoni or Jon Favreau, or are they going to bring somebody else? Like, who's going to be the person? Because if you do this, it's such a radical move. And I guess they did it with Star Trek, you know. So my you know, Have Hope reminded me that Star Trek actually did this, which they did when Chris Pine and everybody came in. They sort of like just redid the timeline. So it's like it's as if Kirk never existed, and they just did an entirely new dimension to the whole thing. That is what the kind of thing that we're talking like is going to need to happen, and they're not going to be able to do this quickly. I think that Star Wars needs a cool down time. 5-6 years, something like an appreciable cool down time. And then they can potentially have the ability to come back and have people remotely interested in what they have to say or in the kind of stories that they want to tell. Anyway, guys, that's all I got for this installment. Remember what I said, get the information about the application. We'll be back with other things. And if you're listening to this on Talkback, make sure you follow the curator report. Like, you need to get on the Instagram page, My Curator Instagram, and also there's a curator YouTube page that you should be following as well. And it's called let me even see what we have here. The curator reports page, but you know, I think the Instagram is probably a good place to begin. So go to My Curator, MyQurator. Go to the Instagram page first, and then, you know, you can get information about the YouTube there as well, or you can try and find the YouTube directly. But that's where most of my transmissions will be going to. And if you have Instagram, you know, I'm going to be doing I'm doing quite regular things on that page as well, about general film thoughts that come to mind. But that being said, till the next time, Bay out, Spielberg in.